September has passed. It's a new month, which means time for my wrap up. Before I get farther into this video, as of filming this video, the actors' strike is still ongoing. Now, the actors' strike may 100% be done by the time that I upload this video, which means that this whole disclaimer might be pointless. But there's 3 books that I read this month that have been made into movies by companies that people are currently striking against. So I will be linking the Entertainment Community Fund down in the description below so you can support striking workers. And specifically, the Entertainment Community Fund focuses on entertainment workers. But I do want to just be clear, I will be talking about solely the books and not the movies because of the strike. Yeah, let's just get into this wrap up. It's really cold, and look, I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt, so oh my gosh, my bruise. So hopefully that will get me to not ramble too much. I had a really bad blood draw. And I would tell you about it, but I don't want to trigger anyone that has needle phobia because it was like really, really bad. Like, the phlebotomist should have lost her job. But it's fine, it's healing. It's healing, we're all good. Yeah, so without further ado, let's dive into my September wrap up. In September, I read 6 books. 4 of those were physical, 2 of them were ebooks. My average star rating was 3.67 stars, which I feel like is fairly decent, especially because the last, 2 months, my rating has been under 3 stars. So I think it's good that my rating is above 3 stars now. There's only 2 books that I disliked. Well, 2 out of 6 is 1/3 of the books I didn't like. But the books that I did like, I loved. So that really helped my rating get up. So the first book that I read this month is my current favorite book of all time. Although I feel like my ranking for the series, which one that I like best, might be changing, which really stresses me out because I don't want it to change, because then I have to reevaluate my whole personality. Is that the word that I should use for this? I don't know. It just feels like a big deal to have my favorite book in this series change. So my favorite current book is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Look at how pretty all those tabs are. So this is obviously my favorite book. I freaking love the Triwizard Tournament. I love all of the characters in here. If you hear noise, that's my cat. She's playing with a pen off the side on my desk. So as for characters I was marking, all of them were in here except Michael Corners. The characters that I was marking was Hannah Abbott, Pansy Parkinson, Gabrielle Delacour, and Poppy Pomfrey. I also really like Sirius parts in this book. I feel like his part in this book is really underrated. And obviously my favorite characters in this book a lot. Gabrielle Delacour, Flair's little sister, even though I'm the only one who loves her. So I rated this one 5 stars, and I believe this was my 4th time reading this one. I read it first in 2010 or 2011. Second time I read it was 2017, then I read it last year, and I read it this year. So 4 times. I read this book 4 times. And then I read a book off of NetGalley, and I read For the Love of Bridget, which is the first book in the Capture the Light series, and it is by Nanette Littlestone. This is my least favorite book of the month. I have to look up a summary of this book because, to be quite honest, I literally forgot a lot of this book. This book is honestly just so dull and unmemorable that I wouldn't be surprised if I forget every single detail about this book eventually. I faintly remember some of the details of the plot, but I've forgotten a lot of it because it's so boring that my brain tried to just erase it out of my memory. So basically there's this librarian, Bridget, and she owns a library. And then there's a mystery author who comes in and he wants to learn more about this mystery concerning a legend that has to do with Bridget's family. And to help him investigate the legend more, Bridget invites him to a family reunion in Ireland. So they both go to Ireland together. And it's a romance with faint fantasy elements, but the fantasy elements are really weak. Do not read this for the fantasy. Okay. I could rant about this book for a while, so let's get into it. I found every single character to be two-dimensional, and because they all felt two-dimensional, that was a huge reason why I struggled with this book. I felt like they all needed more depth, and I felt like their romance wasn't believable since they were all two-dimensional. I didn't feel like the story was real because of that, and I wish there was more substance to it, and I wish that I would have believed in these characters so much that they felt real, because a good book makes me feel like these characters do exist in a different universe, so they do exist in real life. But these characters in this book were just so bland and boring, and there wasn't much to them. I didn't like the writing style. It was too formal for a book, especially for a romance book, and I also found the writing style to be really, really bland. And I was gonna like forgive the writing style at first, but then I checked on Goodreads. This is not the author's first book. If this had been the author's first book, I would have been more forgiving, because I'd be like, oh yeah, they're still mastering the writing style. But no, according to Goodreads, this author has 14 books out. 14 books out and you're still writing with this writing style? Yuck. I found that this book was really unrealistic. Like, as I was describing the plot to you, there were some things in the plot alone, like from the summary, that don't make sense. So why is Bridget agreeing to help Andrew solve this mystery when Andrew doesn't make it clear to Bridget, like, where he found this mystery, like this legend where he'd heard about it and stuff? And also it's really unclear how he found Bridget in particular. And if I were Bridget, I would have been like, you're a freak, get out of my life. How'd you find me? How'd you find my library and where I live? Leave me alone. But instead, Bridget is like, I'm gonna invite you to Ireland after barely knowing you. And the author's like, I will go with you. And I was like, y'all, stop it right there. Stop. You barely know each other and you're going to Ireland with each other. And then obviously this is a romance. They don't really date very long in the book before things get really intense. Like, and I'm not talking like hookups. I'm talking like engagement. And I was like, what the frick? You need to date for more than like 2 days before you get engaged. That's so unrealistic, especially for a modern book. This isn't like a historical book where characters have to get engaged with each other to get proper marriage and stuff. No, this is a modern book. As I was saying, the fantasy elements in this book were really weak and they weren't developed fully, and I really want an explanation of how the magical artifact worked, but there was no freaking explanation anywhere in there, so it made no sense. And then there's some like cheating in this book. I can't really spoil what the cheating is about, but the thing that frustrated me about the cheating wasn't so much the actual cheating, and cheating normally is like a deal breaker in a book for me, but that wasn't so much the issue here. The issue here was more the fact that like everyone was encouraging the cheating and there's no one that was like, maybe you shouldn't cheat. Everyone was just like encouraging it, like, oh, you should get together even though we believe this man is engaged. So yeah, I was really frustrated at this book. I gave it 1 star. I did receive this from NetGalley and the publisher, so I want to say thank you to NetGalley and the publisher, but also this book is absolutely terrible and one of my least favorite books of the year. Then I read one that I've been really intimidated by, but guess what? I read the whole thing. I'm proud of myself. I read The Fellowship of the Ring, which is the first book in the Lord of the Rings series by J.R.R. Tolkien. But here's the thing. The Lord of the Rings series is supposed to sort of be like one book, one story. I don't think it was initially meant to be split up into 3 books. Also, the first book, let me see if I can find where it says this. So the first book is actually split into 2 books. You can see in the table of contents. So the first book is basically like traveling to Rivendell, and the second book is like everything up until the river when they go their separate ways. So I feel like everyone knows what the Fellowship of the Ring is about, or the Lord of the Rings series. It's a high fantasy series in which characters go on a journey to destroy a ring that is sort of evil and corrupts people. Here's the thing, there were some things I liked about this book. I really like a lot of the characters. I liked Aragorn, I liked Sam, I liked Gimli, I liked Legolas. I actually felt like Legolas and Gimli have some chemistry in the book series, so I low-key sort of ship them now. And I also feel like Sam and Frodo have some chemistry in here, so I sort of ship them too. The main thing about this book is that it's so freaking boring. Like, it's so slow that I was fighting to stay awake every time I cracked open the book to read it. I kept myself on a strict schedule this book because I knew that if I didn't do that, I would get in a slump. So I like forced myself to read a minimum of 50 pages a day. So I think I finished it in like 8-9 days. So I kept myself on like a strict schedule. I don't understand with this book why J.R.R. Tolkien decided to include so many freaking like songs and poems. I was so annoyed. I was like, stop it. Every time one of those came out, I was like, I'm gonna rip out my hair. I can't stand it. It's so freaking annoying, and they're all pointless. Geez, a lot of my thoughts on this book are like comparisons to the movie, and I'm trying to avoid that. But like, I do have very strong feelings about the difference between the movie and the book, but I'm trying not to get into that because of the strike, although the strike could be done by the time that this video is uploaded. I feel like part of the reason this book is so slow is because about 50% of the book is just describing the settings that they're in, which I was like, you need an editor to shave off all of those descriptions that are slowing down the pacing of the story. And then the only other thing that I really feel like I should mention is that there's no strong representation in this book. There's a few female characters, but they aren't very like strong or important. Specifically Arwen, I was like, she's just a figurehead to look pretty there. There's no importance to her in the story at all. And no people of color, which isn't surprising given when this was published. Yeah, published in 1954. Honestly, in terms of the books, I really like The Hobbit better than The Fellowship of the Ring. The Hobbit was actually more interesting. And I think it was in part because I read it with my class. So we were like all discussing it and we were all like very into the book and reading it together, and that was fun. But reading this on my own, oh my gosh, I was really frustrated. I ended up giving this 2 stars. My reasoning for giving it 2 stars is just because I feel like, first of all, there's some good characters in here. And also I feel like this book is so important because of how many works it inspired and because it's like a figurehead in fantasy that everyone knows about and loves. I don't love it, but like most people know about it and love it. So I gave it 2 stars. I feel like there was few good things in here, but those were very few and far between. And I feel like you can skip reading the book. Just read a synopsis of it online if you're really curious about what specifically is in the book. Or listen to an audiobook and multitask and tune out the boring parts. You know, I thought being cold would get me to speed up this video, but it's not working at all. The next book I read this month was Latte Girl by Katia Rose. This is Katia Rose's first book, and I thought I would hate it because Katia Rose's like earlier books normally aren't for me. Her like straight romances normally aren't for me. I normally have a lot of issues with them, but Latte Girl was so good and it was what I needed in the moment. So basically Latte Girl is about this girl who works at a coffee shop, and this coffee shop has like a, whatchamacallit, like portable little coffee things that they can go and like serve coffee at different meetings. One day the girl who's in charge of the like portable coffee thing is out. So Haley goes and she takes this cart into this office, and it's like a big fancy building, and Jordan Knox is there, and he's like the CEO's son. So he's like a rich kid. They keep bumping into each other and they immediately have chemistry and they fall in love. So is this book perfect? No, but it was so enjoyable and it was exactly what I needed in the moment to get myself out of the slow headspace of The Fellowship of the Ring. I felt that the chemistry was my favorite part. Haley and Jordan are just so well suited for each other, and they work so well together, and they have so much good chemistry, so much good connection that I really, really enjoyed. I'm not normally a fan of insta-love, but I found that Katia Rose did this really well in Latte Girl. I personally liked Haley better than Jordan, which is no surprise because Katia Rose excels at writing woman characters. She is super well-rounded. I was rooting for her right off the bat, and I loved her journey in the story, and I loved how serious and like how real life her story was, because throughout the story she's trying to pursue her passion, but she's also trying to sort of care for her family and respect her family obligations that her mom are putting on her. So I felt that it was really interesting to read her story and to see her character arc play out on the, I almost said on the screen, on the book, on the page. I also felt like Mel and Mina were super cute. They were a queer side couple, and I really want a whole book focusing just on them and their love story and how they met and things like that. Now, as I said, this book isn't perfect. I felt like the topic of male sexual assault could have been dealt with a lot better because there is male sexual assault in the story, but it sort of like brushes over and doesn't take it very seriously, so I was a little frustrated with that. But this book was exactly what I needed when I needed it. It was an escape from reality. It was super cute and really enjoyable, so I ended up giving it 5 stars, and it is now one of my favorite Katia Rose books. I think it's my 3rd favorite if I were to rank all of hers. So I do recommend Latte Girl. Just don't go into it expecting this like perfect book. But if you're in the mood for a spicy rich guy ex-poor girl romance, then it is definitely a book for you. Then I continued with my Harry Potter rereads by reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I give this one 5 stars, of course. This was my 3rd time reading this book. Look, all the characters are flagging is in there. This is like the one book where Michael Corner is mentioned like extensively in there. I say extensively, he's not actually mentioned that much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's only in here 9 times. in an 800 plus page book, but he's actually in here. He's actually in here, and he's sort of just like Ginny's boyfriend. There's not really much more to him, but yeah, I did mark him because I was curious if there's more to him that I was like forgetting. I love this one so much. The battle scene is my favorite battle out of like every single book I've ever read. The battle in the ministry, it's so well written, it's so creative, it's so fun. I love it so freaking much. Yeah, you've heard me talk about Harry Potter a lot, so I don't need to talk too extensively about it, but Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, of course, is one of my favorites, and I freaking loved it. Now, I don't normally say this for Harry Potter books, but if you don't like Order of the Phoenix, I understand why. Just personally, I love it, and it's one of my favorite in the series. But I do understand why people might not like it very much. Now, the final book that I read this month was a manga. I read Demon Slayer Volume 12 by Koyoharu Gotoge, which I may have said wrong. This is the first volume in the Swordsmith Village arc. So if you've watched the anime, this is basically the start of season 3. This one is a bit slower than the other ones because it's mostly just like training, but I do love this one. I love that there's so many moments with Muichiro and so many moments with Genya because I love both of them so much. I love all of Nezuko's interactions with Muichiro and with Mitsuri, so I do like this one a lot. I just found it a lot slower than the other ones, so I gave it 4 stars. Also, shout out to the manga for like including a backstory for why Mitsuri dresses the way that she does. In case you don't know, you'll see her in the cover of a later volume, but her chest is really exposed and out there when she's fighting demons. But look, there's a little comic that explains why. So I'm thankful for that. The whole time I was reading the other volumes in the series and watching the anime, I was like, why is she fighting like that? One wrong move and one will just slip out. But yeah, as I said, I gave it 4 stars. I liked this one, but it is not my favorite in the series. And I hope I can get around to reading the rest of it soon. I really need to get better at like binge reading manga as opposed to like spreading them out. Because sometimes if I spread them out, I forget important things about the series. Like I'm currently in the middle of Vampire Knight and One Punch Man, but I've split them up so much like between reading each volume that I'm starting to like forget stuff about each one, and I'm like, this is really hard to keep up with. So if anyone actually has any good sites where it's like manga summaries that go volume by volume, you should let me know, because I need a refresher on One Punch Man and Vampire Knight before I continue with the series. So yeah, those were all the books I read this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. Hopefully the actor's strike will be ending soon. The writer's strike did end in September, which I'm very happy about, but still waiting for the actor's strike to end. So yeah, I will get back to my normal uploads. I have so many videos that have been uploaded but are currently private that I can make public as soon as the strike is over. So thank you all for being patient with me and sticking here with me for my future videos, because there will be a lot out. I'm just trying to limit how much I'm posting about production companies that people are striking against during the strike. So yeah, I'll talk to all of you later, and until next time, goodbye.